This is Garrett Seifer on 96.1 The Wit, bringing you a discussion on Marbeck the past 4 years with seniors Nate Otto and Colton Steiner. After hearing about Marbeck being so bad for the past 4 years, I finally wanted to do some research and find out what is the reason for Marbeck being so bad in students' eyes for all these years. Now, Nate, when you think of Marbeck at Bluffton University, what is the first word that comes to your head?
I think the word I would use is consistent.
Now, why would you use that word in particular?
Well, when I think of like what meals have been, I'm not going to say that Bluffton is a 5-star dining facility, but I do think that they have a certain level of quality that's been there all 4 years that I've been here.
If it's not 5-star quality, what would you give it?
I think I would give it a solid. I would give it a solid 3.5, 4 stars.
Now, I know you were gone for a whole semester, but have you seen a difference since last year for Marbeck?
It's actually funny you should ask that. Yeah, I think it has improved from last year to this year quite a bit, in my opinion. For example, the burgers, they're a little thicker, a little juicier. Some of the other, I think the red hot options have improved. And then, of course, they're putting the cookies through the pizza oven now, and that's a quality option right there.
Now, Nate, what would you compare Bluffton's food to, another university, or would it even compare to Mama's Cooking? Well,
Garrett, first of all, ain't nothing that compares to Mama's Cooking. Let's just get that clear. But no, when I say my rating as far as the stars go, I'm thinking in terms of other universities. I have a lot of friends, obviously, that go to other schools than Bluffton, and some of them, they have one option for a meal every night.
Now, I know you played soccer for a year, so you might have been trying to eat healthier maybe at that point. Would you say that Bluffton's dining services are healthy in any way, or have they gotten healthier in the past couple of years?
I think that there are definitely healthy options. I mean, the salad bar, there's a salad bar every day, every meal. And then, a lot of times their main line have healthy components. As far as me eating healthier, yeah, I think I've become more aware of that over my 4 years here. I don't know that that's anything to do with Bluffton changing their options, as opposed to me just realizing that that's the reality of what I need to do.
Since I was gone for a whole semester, they have changed the way you get to-goes now. It used to be that you would just walk in, get it, and leave, but obviously, as everyone knows, people usually take more than what they're supposed to. So now they just make it themselves as you were standing there now. Do you find this a positive that you get to have someone else make your meal instead of you just grabbing it and leaving?
Yeah, you get a fresh sandwich as opposed to a peanut butter and jelly that was made the night before. I think that's definitely a positive.
So you and me are friends, and I know that you have worked in a kitchen before. So do you have any insight as to an undercover level that no one might not know?
I don't know about undercover level, but I worked for 3 summers in a kitchen at a summer camp where we had to follow any rules that any commercial dining hall would have to follow. And I will say the first 2 years after I worked there, once you work in a kitchen, you just see things. You see cleanliness issues, and definitely some things that deal with health code. And the first 2 years, there would be times where, one example of something I saw was the grill where they used to grill chicken. They set the raw chicken on the counter. The worker walked away to go do something else, and the chicken sat there for about 20 minutes. And that's one of those things that you have to be really careful with, because when you're feeding a lot of people, you can unintentionally cause a lot of people to get sick from mistreating that food. And since I've been back on campus, I haven't seen anything like that. They have a new management in there. At least from an outsider's perspective, they're doing a better job with abiding by those codes, changing gloves when you're supposed to, not leaving raw chicken on the counter, and just having a generally cleanlier, more clean environment.
In the past, 4 years that we've been here, I personally can't say that we've had, an epidemic or anything. Can you think of anything?
No, I don't think anything ever, epidemic has broken out. There might have been some digestional issues from, people just getting the runs from Marbeck.
Now, I'm sure you know as much as well as I do that everyone here at Bluffton at one time or another likes to rag on Marbeck. I'm curious as to know, what do you think everyone thinks about Marbeck?
When you say everyone else, you're talking about students?
Yeah, like students collectively like to rag on them all the time. just about how bad their food is. But you've been pretty positive about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm definitely one of the. I will complain at times. For example, I think on weekends, those options that I talked about, they get quite a bit slimmer. And again, like I have a little insight into the food service industry, so I have a little more sympathy maybe for the food service than some students would. But
yeah, you can say that it's a lot harder than what everyone else thinks.
Yeah,
It's not just putting a patty out there and just throwing it out.
Right. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, from ordering food to making sure that you've got stuff in the oven on time. So yeah, I'm definitely sympathetic to that. I'm also one. I'll complain just like every other student, but I think that that's just kind of how it goes. Is you're used to what you have, and you tend to take that for granted. Especially when you may have never experienced anything else where you don't have more than one food option at every meal.
So there's been some talk around campus about possibilities of bringing in some other branding of like other restaurants. Like I know, for instance, at like BG, there's like Marco's and other Chinese restaurants that are actually built into their university. Do you think this would, if this ever happened at Bluffton, would this bring in more excitement? Like would people want to eat more here, even on the weekends maybe?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt in my mind that would definitely increase the amount of people eating in cafeteria. I mean, I think there's talk of them trying to do that. I don't know how realistic that is, but I hope it is going to happen, because I think that would definitely improve not only the dining experience, but the overall perception of Bluffton's dining service in general.
I am here with Colton Steiner discussing Marbeck in the past 4 years. Colton, how would you describe Marbeck through your 4 years of being here?
Well, for me, my freshman year, it wasn't that great. I mean, they had good food at times, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Then sophomore year, it kind of wasn't that great either, because you put in suggestions, but it ended up actually being worse in my opinion. And then last year, I think, was the worst year that it's been since I was here. Remember an incident where a student found bugs on their fries, and I can't remember if it was in the vinegar or something, but yeah, that's just not supposed to go that way. So over my time here at Bluffton, it hasn't been that great, but this year they've made a couple improvements where I think it's helped it, and actually they've made some good food, and they're headed in the right direction. But the last 3 years, not that great. As a freshman coming in, you're like, oh, you get to choose. There's so much food here. At my high school, we had one thing everyone had for lunch. Then you come here, it's like, oh, cool, you have so many options. But the options are great, but if they're not good, then it's not really a step in the right direction.
Would you say Marbeck is a little deceiving when making food for incoming students?
Oh, I would completely agree with you there, because they're trying, which I completely understand, because they're trying to bring in students. And when you're trying to bring in students, that's when you kind of go all out. You try and impress your campus, and, oh, we make this great food. When in reality, the students are like, oh, this is a one-time thing, and tomorrow it's probably going to be pretty bad food. I mean, not a bad business move, but it's not a good move for the food, because when they get here, it's like, oh, this food isn't that great. And some students end up transferring, not because of food, obviously, but it's like one of the things, the food isn't great. I can go to another college that has better food options and healthier food options, more options in general.
If you had any kind of suggestion for Marbeck, what would it be?
If I had one suggestion, it would be to try and create more options, because when you go into the doors to see food, there's salad bar, can be anybody's choice any day. That's something that really hasn't changed over the last couple of years. There's a grill, that hasn't changed. But one thing that they added was a grilled cheese, and I think that's a step in the right direction, because that gives something a student can actually make him or herself. And that's something I think they did right. Just try and build off of that. Try and create more options where students can make their own food, in a sense, and actually be creative with their food. I mean, you can be creative with stuff they have, but it's kind of just generic. The pizza, burgers, kind of mainline. They have a deli too. Just see if you can throw in some creative ideas where students can make their own food, in my opinion.
Me and Nate talked about how there was like a rumor going around that they might bring in like some type of restaurant into Marbeck as like a side little thing, but it might not be true. But what would you think about that?
I think that would be great. I mean, it would give another variety. And if it wouldn't be open every day, I could understand that, because then you have to get student workers to work that, and more money going into that, and less people wanting the food they actually make. So I can see them, if they would open that like a couple days, I think that'd be a good start, and to see how students like that. And it always also depends on what kind of food they're adding. But I think they're stepping in the right direction with trying to get more variety. And like I said, and when it comes to the restaurant kind of thing, that's a great idea. I completely am all for that, and I think a lot of students would agree that they hear our frustrations and they're building off that.
What do you think about Bob's instead of like Marbeck? Do you think they are better in a way, or they're worse?
I like Bob's. Obviously, the food isn't healthier, but if they would try and build off Bob's and have Beaver Bucks, like meal deals on the weekends, because I know a lot of students, food on the weekends really isn't good at all. I mean, it isn't that great during the week, but it really steps down during the weekends because a lot of students aren't here. The opening times for Marbeck isn't ideal either. They're only open for like an hour on Saturdays, and it's like we have to use if we are busy, like there's a lot of sporting events too, and people have work, so they can't. Then they have to end up using their Beaver Bucks, and that actually adds up over time. So if they would kind of start a way where you can use your swipes for Bob's on the weekends, I think that would be a great idea, as well as creating more options for Bob's too. So that'd be an ideal situation.